What's up, guys? It's Kelly from Muddybeards 4x4. I am at King of the Hammers right now. We got the trophy trucks racing right now. We got helicopters, we got drones, we got all kinds of noises going on around us, and this is pretty cool. But just want to introduce this video. I'm going to be installing 1-inch wheel spacers on my Jeep. I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to take it to King of the Hammers. I'm going to beat it up on 40s with bead locks and see if these $58 wheel spacers from Titan Wheel Accessories that I got on eBay are going to hold up to 40s and King of the Hammers. So let's get back to my garage where I'll show you how to install them. Then at the end, I will show you if they survive or not. So let's get to it. Okay, guys, so there's two different types of wheel spacers. There is hub-centric and lug-centric wheel spacers. These ones in particular are lug-centric. How you could tell the difference is the hub-centric, the center here would be much smaller and it would have a lip sticking out of it where it would fit perfectly inside the wheel that you're using in order to center it on the wheel itself. The main reason why I need wheel spacers is I have rubbing issues. Ever since I built this front 3-link kit, the lower control arm here is rubbing, and my upper coil mount in the front here is rubbing. Also in the back, after I did my outboarding, my shocks, that project that I did, it's rubbing on the shock. These big 36-inch 1350 tires are rubbing. So my solution to that was 1-inch wheel spacers. I personally would not really go above a 1.5-inch wheel spacer. So the bigger the wheel spacer is, the more stress you're putting on your factory lug nuts here. So if you're running like a 3-inch wheel spacer, you're probably most likely to break the factory studs on your factory hub, not the actual studs on the wheel spacer itself. The wheel spacer will probably survive, but you will probably break the studs on your factory hub. So a lot of factors come into play with this: the amount of horsepower you have, how big of tires you're running, the gearing that's in your transfer case, it's in your differentials. There's a lot of factors to consider when you're deciding if you want to run wheel spacers or not. That could actually lead to them breaking. Got my 6 little lines on here, which usually means in standard that these are grade 8 bolts. But I don't know about that. I guess we'll find out. I'm not sure if China grade 8 is the same as US grade 8. So if you wanted to, you could actually press these studs out that they have in here and get factory style grade 8 actual studs and probably press them into this aluminum housing, and that might work out for you. You might feel a little bit more confident about it. But I'm just going to leave it the way it is because I want to see if these cheap ones are going to hold up to King of the Hammers. The most important thing, the most important thing is before you get started is to make sure that it actually fits both sides. This says it's 5 on 5.5 by 5 on 5.5 and 1 inch thick. So let's put it on here. Does it fit on here? It does. So it fits on here, 5 on 5.5. And make sure it actually fits on the wheel as well before we put it on, because we don't want to cut our studs off, install this thing on here, and find out that the bolt pattern is not exactly correct. So this does fit on here, so it is what it says it is. I measured it, it's actually perfect 1 inch. So in order to cut these studs off properly, you need to start with the nuts on there, because when you cut it, especially with this cutoff wheel, it's going to leave kind of a gnarly edge. So when you take this nut off, it's going to cut whatever thread is there. So if you mess up the threads, this nut will cut that thread, so you'll be able to install it and take it back off if you have to. These are intended to be pretty much permanent, which is why we're going to be Loctiting them with our red Loctite. But in case you want to take them off, you want that thread to be usable. So I'm just going to mark this up to 1 inch and take this nut out to just slightly under 1 inch, probably 1/8 of an inch in, just to give me that buffer right there, and we're going to go ahead and do that to all these. Guys, don't be like me. Anytime you're cutting or grinding anything, make sure you're wearing your proper safety equipment, your safety glasses, your ear protection, your gloves, and your mask, so you're not breathing in all that metal. It's not good for you. So now that we have it, everything ground down the way we want it, fits on there perfectly, going to be taking our nuts and Loctiting them. So we're going to Loctite the nuts, tighten them on there. I'm going to hit them down with my impact real quick. And don't be shy with the Loctite, by the way, because a very important part of this process is the Loctite. Because you don't want these things coming loose. So be liberal with your Loctite. So I'm just going to tighten them down a little bit with my impact, just to get them snug. And then I will be doing my final torquing with my torque wrench. And I like to tighten these lug nuts to 95. So that's what I'm going to tighten these to, is 95 foot-pounds. You especially do not want to over-torque these because you're torquing aluminum. So if you over-torque these and you're like, I'm just going to tighten them down as tight as I can get them, bad idea. The aluminum is a lot softer than the steel and these lug nuts, so you're going to have a problem. So do not over tighten these. There we go. You got 1, 2, 4. Even after I torque it, I go back around one more time and hit every single one, make sure it's actually torqued to the proper spec. Okay, there we go. So I only have to do this 3 more times. And then we'll be all done. Install the wheels, we'll be good to go. Now that I have the wheel spacer on this left front here, I decided to do some measuring with this piece of wood and a tape measure and my kid's sidewalk chalk. So I measured the tire straight, measured it at full lock here, and then I'm just measuring the difference between the two using the sidewalk chalk and the straight edge. And I just wanted to see how much more turning radius I'm going to get with a 1-inch wheel spacer compared to no wheel spacer. So I got 12 inches on this side. So my turning radius, I got 12 inches of travel this way to the left. And so when I go over to the right, I actually only have 9 inches. So that gives me 3 more inches of travel, turning radius going both ways. So that is huge for me in my turning radius. I'm super excited about that. We're going to repeat the exact same process as we did on the front on this rear here, except these studs are a little bit longer and will actually make our life a little bit easier in cutting them off, and we're not just cutting just a tiny little bit off. It makes it a little bit more difficult. And there's no center hub, also makes it a little bit easier. So I got all these set up to 1 inch minus 1/8 of an inch. So I want that little tiny little bit of wiggle room so I don't make it too long. So in case you're wondering, this is a Ford 8.8 with a superior axle, Super 88 kit, 31 spline, chromoly axle, C-clip eliminator. So it actually moves the axle out to 61.5 inch width, I believe, which is pretty comparable, almost the same as the factory TJ. And they made this kit specifically for retrofitting these to the TJ. Superior axle, I don't believe is in business anymore, doesn't make them anymore. So I think Yukon Gears makes them now, and maybe some other companies might be doing it as well. But I've been running this 8.8 with a Super 88 kit, and I actually have a Detroit locker, 513 gears, and I've been on this thing for, as it is right now, probably 6 years, and I've had the 8.8 for probably 8 years, and I've literally had no problems with it. It's done fantastic. So enough about that. Let's just cut these studs off, just like we did the front, and Loctite it back on there. So the most important part of this is torquing these down properly. So make sure you're crossing your patterns. Don't need to do a specific star pattern, all this crazy stuff. Just make sure you're going back and forth across. I'm doing 95 foot-pounds. And especially with these new studs, they are going to stretch a little bit. So make sure you torque them down a couple of times. So I'm going to torque them all the way around. And then I'm going to go back around and make sure I hit all of them again. And you'll see how much more I'm actually going to get out of these that second time around, because they're going to be stretching just a tiny little bit. And you're going to want to periodically check these, especially when they're brand new. You want to check these. I'll probably check these as soon as I get to King of the Hammers. Probably do like one trail, and then I'll probably recheck them. So I torqued all of them already, and it's still tight. See, I'm getting more out of this one. More. That's still good. And a bunch more. So I'm going to go back around again, actually. I'll probably actually go drive it around a little bit and then just retorque them again before I even load it up on the trailer anyways too. So, because these will come loose, so you're definitely going to want to periodically check the inner ones that are Loctited and these outer ones. Alright guys, so we're pretty much wrapping it up for the week. We've been here for 6 days and done a lot of trails in this thing. And I have to say that these wheel spacers survived King of the Hammers with 40s on it. And let me tell you, trails we did were pretty tough. I beat on it pretty hard, and they held up really well. The only complaint I have about these wheel spacers is the very first time I took the lug nuts off, a couple of them were very difficult to pull off. So the quality of the actual lug nuts themselves, the studs, probably not too high, and I have a feeling if I have to pull them off a couple more times, they might get a little bit mangled. So I'm not really happy about that, but for $58 wheel spacers for all 4 of them to survive King of the Hammers on 40s for a whole week, getting beat up, I'm actually pretty impressed. So anyways guys, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, leave us some comments, subscribe to our channel, and we will see you on the trail.